Hi, I'm Andrew, and welcome to the Breakpoint, PaymentIQ's roundtable podcast about iGaming payments and the people running them. Each episode, I sit down with my team and we get into the real stuff, the risks CEOs don't see coming, the revenue quietly walking out the door, and the conversations your head of payments is probably not having with you yet. It's honest, occasionally uncomfortable, and we think it's exactly what the industry needs more of. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Tatiana, KP, how are you? How's it going?
Good.
Good, yeah.
Still surviving.
Still surviving? Yeah,
I'm
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves so our listeners understand, who you guys are, what you guys do.
Okay. I'm KP. I'm head of product at PaymentIQ. And basically what I do is translating leadership vision into a strategy and execution and being responsible for that delivery towards our operators. So that's a brief introduction on what we do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe Tatiana, you can elaborate a bit more.
I'm Tatiana. Reporting to KP. I'm a product director responsible for the provider integrations part.
So I have this thing in front of me now. This is a job vacancy for a head of payments at a company within the iGaming industry. And there's a lot of different parts in it. And there's parts about, leading and managing payment operations. And then there's parts about defining and executing payment optimization strategies. It's a lot. In the first few lines here, you have really two versions for one role. And talking about operations and strategy, we're talking about back to back here. It seems like they project the same weight. But from my experience, I don't think they do. Because operations and strategy are different, right? They're not really the same. But when we're talking about a role here as head of payments that has to do both of these things, we're talking about two different people that have to do a single person's job. And the reality is that most heads of payments within our industry, right, within iGaming, they are running two jobs simultaneously. The first one is a strategic one, right? So talking about optimizing performance. And then the second one is day-to-day stuff, right? Failed transactions, seeing provider escalations, and all these other things that has to be managed. And then you also have commercial influences in there as well. So it's a lot of different things. And where I'm going with this is when you have your head of payments, their reporting line, so the reporting line of this individual head of payments into an operator, it tends to vary. I've seen different reporting lines depending on who I speak to, right? Because there's no specific set of reporting lines that, this function falls into. Do you think that where this role actually falls into an organizational chart, do you think that it defines exactly the level and velocity of this role?
So I think you firstly touch upon how you see the head of payment role being split between operations and strategy.
Yeah.
And what I see is usually what I say firefighting, which is associated with operational responsibility versus proactive thinking is where you need to have a strategy in place. And both of them are equally important. What I have seen is usually the operation part taking a toll on you. It's classical urgent and important quadrant if you have into that. Its operational duties are urgent and important.
Yeah.
And strategic things are urgent, not urgent, but important.
Yeah.
And then usually your operational role takes more toll on you. The tools and the efficiency that you have in that operational part doesn't allow you to reduce your burden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I see. And you talked about the visibility part of the payments team. How I see is how payments team are visible in the organization, how much empowerment that they have is also related with the success of that payments team in terms of the impact that they can have. So more visibility in terms of, let's say, as a business function, how important is that treated from an entire business perspective? That visibility will translate into the impact that a payments team can have.
So visibility in terms of actually
empowering the priority on the roadmap,
yeah,
all the things that basically you are not treating payments as something that you forget about and you only look at it when it stops working.
So a little bit of accountability in there as well, right? So a bit of responsibility, yeah. That makes perfect sense. But when it comes to the reporting line, how do you think this impacts a head of payments role? So reporting into finance, let's say, and reporting into the CEO.
So based on my experience, I don't see the direct relation, because what I've seen with our customers mostly, regarding of reporting line, the head of payments is close to CEO anyway on daily basis and frequently cooperating with the CEO. And that actually defines the severity of this role, because this is actually a crucial role.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong with payments, then the company revenue is going away. And that's why, like, regarding of the hierarchy in the company, the relationship between head of payment and CEO is always close.
Yeah, I hear you, and I vouch for that as well. But we need to also understand that head of payments has not been a standard job, right? It's something that arose because of this focus and obsession on payments and exactly how businesses, how operators in our case, can use the power of payments, payment performance and all these things to make sure that the business does better and better, right? And because relatively head of payments is a new job, let's say, the reporting line still varies, right? So, but definitely I think it should be something that should be reported directed into and reported into the CEO, because we're talking here about a crucial function, right? That does multiple jobs on day-to-day and strategic, but definitely has to be part of the bigger picture, right? It's a very big responsibility, the payment stack. And what's important to also say here is that when a payments manager, a head of payments, can actually go into the CEO's office and say, our acceptance rate dropped to 3, 4, 5%. And I will do this, right? We're going back into what you said in terms of accountability and responsibility more than just visibility. But this action that a head of payments can take is different from, them saying everything is fine, good, I'm dealing with everything else, I don't need to think about, anything else. What do you think it takes to get to this version of the role where the head of payments can walk into the office of the CEO and say, we have a drop in acceptance rates, I need to do this?
So I think both scenarios can exist.
Yeah.
Why we are
true,
not considering
that's
the happy flow. It's still, I think, and there are a lot of cases where the PSP works fine, or maybe actually perfect for this particular region or for this particular market, or there the operator configured perfect rules with the fallback scenario, that the transactions are being recovered and the conversion flow is, let's say, up to a benchmark. But of course, if something is going wrong, then a head of payments should come to the CEO office and come up actually with that action plan. And in my view, to build this action plan, you need to wear two hats. So one of them is the strategic role, and another one is operational. Because you cannot build a strategy without understanding how payment flows, how payment flow works, and how payment and cash flows, and what is actually acceptance rate, what can affect it, how this can be improved. So for that, you need to really dig into the details, pull up the data, pull up the reports, go into the transaction details to see what is happening, or you can do it yourself, or you need a team, or you need extension of your team represented by partners. But this is something what has to be done.
Yeah. It's like if I have to summarize, it's like you need to have a helicopter view of your business, you know, how it runs. But you need to go into the details, because devil is in the details. That's what you say. But in terms of, like, I would say, if you have to have that passion, it is fundamentally about growth of your business. So you need to have that mindset that you want to grow in a continuous manner and have best user experience possible. If you kind of relate with these two core values, of course you will see people going to the details, having and improve this. How can we grow? How can we have better user experience? And to achieve that, you need to go into the details. You need to have the helicopter view. That's how I see it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the details, helicopter view, they're very important. And again, for a function that has to do two roles. And, you know, I think in its totality, the job for overhead of payments is a lot, right? You have to do a lot of things. But when it comes to what should be in place for these head of payments to actually, you know, do their job, what do you think is critical?
I think I can repeat myself. So this person, and also actually what KP said, this person needs to have possibility to think strategically and on detail level. So basically zoom in, find the information, find the details, and then zoom out and build the strategy for improvement and for growth. But again, to do that, you need a lot of things, like understanding how payment works in details. You need to know who is who in the market in terms of partners, with which partners you want to work, or get an advice from other companies which can introduce you to a different PSPs on the market. You need to understand for example, specific payment methods on the market. You need to understand the trends on the market so that you are not behind, and then you have conversation and pair with your partners and providers.
So KP, talking about trends, right? What is on top of mind right now when we're talking about trends?
Yeah, I would say in general, from a payments perspective, fintech, you have technology, regulation, user experience, and competition pushing you in right directions. So you just to elaborate on each of these, if you see, for example, regulation, there is a new regulation coming in for iGaming in Brazil or US. That is changing from technology perspective. AI is making transformational shifts towards not only technology, but then you have user experience as well. So these are I would say, key trends to watch for on the broad areas that a payments team should be aware of, so that they can be a first achievers or a first mover.
I was also thinking, by the way, about agentic payments. Basically, I think this is the topic where every operator and every merchant should start looking for, because they not only or purely from the payment perspective, but also like how customers are finding the operator website or the regular merchant website. It's also nowadays done by AI, basically. So the chat window for ChatGPT or Claude becomes actually the place where customers are finding the information about the merchant, and then eventually where they will be pay for the services or goods which they're getting from the merchant. So that's why we all have to start thinking from that perspective now and make our infrastructure ready. Like, I can give you an example from the different perspective. So because we are building PSP integrations, we're now starting to see that on the PSP website with the API documentation, they now have sections for AI-driven integrations. So basically, this is a section specifically designed for AI to read the documentation and build the integration. So not for human. And this is where we are all moving for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to continue on that is, like I said, AI is making a transformational shift on how we look at payments as well. I think the other day we were discussing about merchant-initiated authentication, which is quite different than what we have seen in the past, where customers are involved, or you and me, like end users, are involved in authentication. But now with agents becoming able to pay, you can have offline authentication as well. So which is a good trend. So I think it's also a key one.
What does that mean from a player perspective when you say that?
Yeah, for example, let's say if you are as a player authenticating a transaction for an amount X, and you change your mind in cashier to top up with X plus Y, you can still have that from operator perspective, that authentication allowed for that amount change, which was previously not allowed. So from an operator perspective, it is a security that they get. But from a player perspective, in the past, if you do not have that, your transaction may be getting denied. So you as a player will be rejected to do that transaction. So now that is possible. So it's a win-win on the both sides. And it's quite an interesting shift.
And it would be interesting also for the other payments to understand their say.
And maybe just to give another example, just to show the full complexity of the payment and also to demonstrate that there are high-level important topics, but there are also very detailed topics which probably not seen by head of payments, but this may impact, let's say, the conversion rate and the performance of the company. For example, MasterCard announced the change in the payment flow. Their, let's say, they will send in the payment response through the whole payment chain transaction ID, which have to be stored by merchants and then used in recurring payments, in, let's say, repeated payments, but also in so-called live transactions like refund or chargebacks. And then if this ID is not there, then transaction will be declined. So this is a small thing, but this directly impact the conversion and approval rate. Or another thing is, which is actually quite, I shouldn't say popular because this is a regulatory requirement, it's a name check. And now Visa and MasterCard provides these services where merchant can just ask for a name verification done by Visa and MasterCard. And these are additional services which in some areas are mandatory already.
You're talking about the verification of pay, I presume.
Visa INI.
It's Visa INI and MasterCard, ACI, ASI. But it's basically it's a name verification. So then you are verifying the customer name. This includes a lot of skills and abilities to do this work successfully.
Yeah, so you focused, again, on specific things that are involved in different parts of the job, right? When it comes to, partners and the data part and all these things. And definitely it's a job that requires a lot of work. And it's very important in the business as well, because of all these things that you have to do and need to be aware of and need to, kind of work on the daily. But let's say you are hiring tomorrow. Yeah, you're an iGaming operator. Let's say you are the CEO, and you're hiring for a head of payments. And given that we've constantly touched on the fact that the job is so complex, what would you look at? Would you look at maybe being able to operate strategically? Would you look at things like, also being operational, mindset-wise? Would it be both? What would you guys focus on?
Yeah, I would say a combination of both. But I would definitely look for someone who likes payments complexity.
Yeah.
Payments is like it's like a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
In terms of user experience, you are just clicking on a button or an Apple Pay and the payment goes through.
Yeah.
But there are multiple layers behind, multiple stakeholders, touch points that are involved in making that transaction successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets complex. And if you are someone who do not like that complexity, do not like that stakeholder management versus getting hands dirty, being operational as well as strategic, it's not an ideal role for you. It will be stressing you versus you are loving it. So for me, I like the payments complexity quite a lot.
You're obsessed.
I enjoyed. So that's what I would look for, a person who really is passionate about payments complexity, understanding payments better to give the better user experience.
So you're moving outside of the traditional question then, whether you have to be operational or you have to be strategic, and more into, do you actually understand and are passionate about the industry, of the payment industry specifically, that fits within the iGaming industry, right? Because it's a whole individual branch. Yeah, and that's actually very interesting, because once you do that, you start to see the other two parts, such as the strategic thinking and also the day-to-day operations one, come together, right? Because once you obsess, as you continuously repeat, you are, capable of doing those two, right? Yeah. But in your case, what would you look for when it comes to hiring a head of payments? I know it's a very it's an interesting question.
Actually, for us, this is not probably a hypothetical question, because we are hiring in our team, and we are very demanding. So we can say that we are at the moment probably in the same shoes as CEO, who is hiring for head of payment. We are hiring for product managers, and we are looking for exactly the same things. You have to be able to build a strategy. You have to understand which PSPs next to connect, to which markets to go, at which exactly moment you need to do a KYC, how to streamline the experience with Apple Pay or Google Pay, why experience UX at cashier is important. Mm-hmm. But you cannot do that just by reading the reports or asking ChatGPT or Claude, or reading documentation, or even talking with customers is not enough. You need to make your hands dirty. You need to go into the transaction details, see why these transactions are failing. What are the reasons for these particular PSPs not performing good in this particular market, for this particular method, for this particular currency? Only then you will be able to operate on a higher level. And that's why you need a combination. And that's why we are not looking for someone who can operate only on strategic level, but we also are not looking for someone who can only analyze the transactions and then fix it and then say that everything else is now not in his or her area of responsibilities. Someone else has to do that. This has to be end to end.
And to be honest with you, looking again at the job vacancy here, it has some nice things. But when I look at it, I see a lot of vague qualification and experience parts, such as there's one bit here that says that you have to have some experience, previous experience in the financial sector, in payment operations and strategy, which of course it's important, but what would be one of the things that you would include in the job description, do you think?
Payment knowledge.
Payment knowledge, super important.
Payments complexity, payments knowledge is absolutely essential.
Yeah, 100%. And once you get into, you get some individuals, you actually get in front of them, and then you start moving into the next stage of it. They understand the operations part of payments, they understand the strategic thinking of payments. What would be one of the questions that you would ask them in the interview?
To understand if they understand the payment complexity.
Yeah.
There are many different aspects I can go about, but as simple as like how 3D Secure works.
Yeah.
Going into the details about those, or how Apple Pay transaction works.
Yeah.
Can they explain how the details of these transactions are, and what are the day-to-day challenges that they have faced with this?
Yeah. So again, going deeper into the payment stack, right? Because their role of head of payments is more than what is on paper. It's more than what's
Absolutely.
on here. It's more than what we discuss on the daily, and it's more than what is actually being assumed to be, right? Because it's not a job that has been around for ages. It's a job that was created.
Another thing which just now that you mentioned is quite crucial for this role is basically reliance on external stakeholders to make your job successful.
What do you mean by that?
That is also quite tricky. So for example, you are at head of payments. Usually your payment stream is small, and you rely on multiple partners to provide you the best experience, best authorization rate, best optimization, and sometimes even more, let's say, partners to make the payment successful along the way, like KYC or 3D Secure or whatnot. And when you have reliance on other partners to become successful, you need to have that key stakeholder management skill so as to get the right things out of them without being too much annoying.
That is something that I would like to echo as well. Yeah. 100%.
And maybe just a disclaimer for customers who are listening to us, we are okay to be annoyed by their questions.
Yeah, it's important to be okay by it. Yeah, of course, something that we do on the daily, and it's something that we love doing as well. No, but definitely, guys, I think it's a very good conversation because we are not just going over the role, but we're actually going deeper into what it means, not just surface things, not just looking at a job description. We're going deeper at actually what it entails and what it's supposed to be like, right? And that's what I think is really important. And for a payment manager listening to right now, who is stuck in this firefighting mode and wants to shift into being a little bit more operational in terms of thinking, what do you think, from your own experience, should be the first thing that they should do tomorrow?
So just to make sure that I understand the question. So there is someone who wants to make a shift to be more operational or less operational?
Yes.
Less operational, more strategic.
More strategic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because as we continuously repeat it, there's a lot of impact on the strategic parts, on the head of payments, and it eventually becomes a role where you put out fires. There's a problem, you have to go to the CEO and solve it. And it becomes less of a role where you have to think ahead of, how can I actually improve approval rates? How can I improve payment acceptance in general? So what should this individual do tomorrow to shift gear into more of a strategic thinking?
Yeah, I think two key hints that I can give for is look for tools, look for partners. And when I say tools, is someone like a payment orchestration, which can give you a consolidated view, or look for tools like AI we discussed, which can help you being more efficient, so your operational part of your role goes down. So that would be my key focus if I'm a payments manager who is stuck in a more operational role.
Well, what would you do?
No, I agree with KP. You can also extend your team or get a team if you are on your own in the company. So this is a mind shift to try to look for help externally or internally to get this headspace to think more strategically.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. It requires a lot of different steps to move from this day-to-day operational into strategic way of working, right? And it applies for the head of payments extremely, and it applies for, of course, a lot of other jobs too. So we've had a good discussion today about a lot of different parts about the head of payments, right? And I think the things that stood out for me were the fact that we are not just talking here about a person that has two jobs. We are supposed to be talking to a person that is head of payments that actually is passionate about and understands what head of payments actually supposed to be doing, right? Being proactive, having access to the right tools, and actually understanding that there's a lot of things that can be done, should be done to improve the payment business. Because at the end of the day, your payments, when they're up and running, when everything is going like a clock, the business is doing great. Supposed to, at least. Well, KP, Tatiana, thank you for today. This is a great conversation. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Likewise.